Hello students, my name is Evans Christian Komba, a teacher of economics. I graduated at the University of Dar es Salaam in 1997 and I've been teaching economics for 23 years now. In economics, we have two parts. We have the first part for Form 5, which is known as Economics 1. And the second part is for Form 6, which is called Economics 2. In Form 5, we have 11 topics, and in Form 6, there are 9 topics. The topics which are covered in Form 5 are 1, subject matter of economics, 2, production, 3, a market, 4, theories of demand and supply, 5, theory of the firm, 6, theory of money, number 7, population, number 8, employment and unemployment, number 9, trade cycle, number 10, privatization, and 11, we have environmental economics. The 11 topics, as I've said, are taught in Form 5. In Form 6, there are 9 topics, beginning with the first, national income, the second, public finance, the third is financial institutions, the fourth is marketing and distribution, the fifth is international trade, the sixth is international economic integration and cooperation. Another topic is planning. From planning, we have the structure of Tanzanian economy, and the last one is economic growth and economic development. As I've said, for the start, as we'll begin with Form 5 topics. And today, our topic is the market. In a market, there are certain items that we need to know. The first item that we need to understand is the meaning of the word a market. Definition of the word a market. We'll provide 3 definitions of a market. 1, to the general public, a market means a particular place, an area, location, where buyers and sellers meet to buy and sell goods and services. A place where buyers and sellers meet to exchange goods and services, buy and sell. But a market may also refer to the situation of demand, the extent of demand for a particular commodity. situation of demand. We take for the sake of the current situation, the demand for sanitizers, the demand for masks is very high, situation of demand. But sometimes we also say that demand for a commodity, or sometimes we say a market is a situation where buyers and sellers interact to determine the price and quantity of a commodity bought and sold. A market is a situation where buyers and sellers interact to determine price and quantity of a commodity bought and sold. So, in this, a market can be a place. A market can refer to situation of demand for a commodity. A market can refer to situation where buyers and sellers interact to determine the price and quantity of a commodity bought and sold. But again, we need to qualify what makes a market. So this was number one. The second item is to know determinants of a market. What makes a market? Or say conditions for a market to exist. That to say that this is a market, what are the features, the conditions which form a market? One, in a market, we need to have buyers and sellers. In a market, there must be buyers who have brought the goods and sellers who have come to purchase the goods and services. The second, in a market, we need to have commodities. Goods and services which have to be exchanged, to be bought and sold. In a market, we need to have price of commodities. Prices for each commodity in a market. In addition to prices for commodities bought and sold, we need to have location, place, or area where transactions are taking place. And finally is contact between buyers and sellers. So basically in a market, we have buyers and sellers, we have commodities, goods and services, we have price, we have location, and we have contact. After having known this second item concerning a market, we need to know the third item, classification of markets. Classification of markets. For the sake of this study, we'll provide 5 kinds of markets. We have market structures or market situations. Market structures and market situations. We have market types. We have classification of markets according to commodity. Don't worry that I'm mentioning, then we'll go back to each of these market classifications. Then we have according to time, and we have according to place or location. Now, if we have to take the first kind or classification of markets, which I've said is market structures, which are also known as market situations. This refers to the way markets are arranged. Markets are organized. Organization of markets. Now, when we talk of market structures, we have several kinds. In here, we have perfect market. Apart from perfect market, we have imperfect market. So market structures, there are 2, perfect market and imperfect market. Apart from perfect market and imperfect market, under imperfect market, under this imperfect market, under the imperfect market, we have other market structures. One is monopoly. Monopoly. The second is duopoly. Another market structure under imperfect market is oligopoly. Another one is monopolistic competition. Of course, monopoly, duopoly, oligopoly, and monopolistic competition are based on the number of buyers and sellers, but basically we consider how many sellers do you have in a market. Sellers. We'll see in monopoly we have 1 seller, duopoly 2 sellers, oligopoly few sellers, monopolistic competition many sellers. We do not consider much on the number of buyers. We consider the number of sellers. Again, under imperfect market, we have monopsony. Apart from monopsony, we have duopsony. In addition to duopsony, we have oligopsony. And finally, we have monopsonistic competition. This is based on number of buyers. So when you have one buyer, it's monopsony. Two buyers, duopsony. Few buyers, oligopsony. Many buyers, monopsonistic competition. Now, again, we need to know what makes a perfect market or imperfect market. Now, what determines the perfection and imperfection of a market? What makes a market to be called this is a perfect market or an imperfect market? Now, as we move forward, we need to know what makes a perfect market and what makes an imperfect market. Whether a market is perfect or imperfect depends on one, number of sellers and buyers. Are the buyers few or many? Are the sellers few or many? If the number of sellers and buyers is large, that will be a perfect market. But if either sellers or buyers are few, we say that will be an imperfect market. So, in a perfect market, you have many buyers and many sellers. While under imperfect market structures, the sellers or buyers can either be few, or if there are many, there will be some other factors which make it to be a perfect market. Dear students, up to this moment, we have discussed one of the factors which determines a market to be either a perfect market or an imperfect market. Let us look on other factors which determine a perfect market and imperfect market in addition to the number of buyers and sellers. The first point that we highlighted as one of the factors which determine a market to be perfect or imperfect was the number of buyers and sellers. Another point which determines a market to be perfect or imperfect is nature of commodities. That when commodities are homogeneous, that market will be perfect. But if commodities are differentiated, a market will be imperfect. Another factor which determines a market to be perfect or imperfect is freedom of entry and exit. Freedom of entry and exit. If entry is free, a market will be perfect. If entry is restricted, a market will be imperfect. Another factor is existence of transport cost. In a perfect market, there are no transport costs. No transport costs, a market will be perfect. If there are transport costs, if transport costs exist, this market will be imperfect. Another factor is knowledge of the market situation. Knowledge of the market situation. If the buyers and sellers are aware of the prices, aware of the quantities, the quality of the goods and services, which need no advertisement, that market will be perfect. So if knowledge is perfect, the market is perfect. If knowledge is not perfect, the market will be imperfect. Well, these are the factors which determine a market to be perfect or imperfect. Now, to understand this more, we go back to what is a perfect market. A perfect market. This is a market structure where there is a large number of buyers and sellers, each of whom is less powerful to influence the price. None of them can affect the price. A market structure with very high degree of competition. High degree of competition. And there are many buyers and many sellers, each of whom is unable to influence the price. Each of whom is unable to influence price. And just to be aware, a perfect market is a theoretical market structure, is an imaginary market structure. So we'll be talking of conditions which are imaginary, not realistic, as this market structure does not exist in real life situation. Now, conditions or features or characteristics. Conditions for a perfect market to exist. One, In a perfect market structure, there are many buyers and many sellers, large number of firms. Many buyers and many sellers. As I've said, in this market structure, there is a large number of buyers and sellers, each of whom is unable to influence market price. A perfect market structure exists when there is a large number of buyers and sellers, and each of them, none of them, be the buyers or sellers, is unable to influence the price. The second condition for a perfect market to exist is that there is free entry and free exit. Free entry and free exit. There are no restrictions for buyers and sellers to enter into the market. There is free entry and free exit. Buyers, sellers, no restrictions to enter into the market. There are no barriers to entry. Another condition is that in a perfect market, there are homogeneous commodities. Commodities are homogeneous. Firms produce commodities which are homogeneous, which are similar. You can't distinguish the commodities which are produced by one firm and another firm. In a perfect market, there is perfect knowledge of the market situation, implying that the producers are aware of the costs and consumers are aware of the prices, quality, and the quantity of the commodities, and therefore there is no need of advertisement. No need to advertise, no advertisements. In this market structure, there are no transport costs. This makes that prices to be constant in all markets. In a perfect market structure, there are no transport costs. If there could be transport costs, then it could be that in all the markets, prices could be different. But in a perfect market structure, prices are constant. That will be another condition. Price is constant. In all markets, price is the same. In all markets, price is the same. Another condition for a perfect market to exist is that there is perfect factor mobility. Factors of production are free to move. Factors like land, factors like capital, labor, capital are mobile. Though land is geographically immobile, but occupationally mobile. Land is geographically immobile, but occupationally mobile. So factors are perfectly mobile under a perfect market structure. After having seen the conditions for a perfect market to exist, we'll find that a perfect market structure does not exist in real life situation. We find that a perfect market structure is a theoretical concept. It's an imaginary concept. It's something that does not exist in real life situation. Why? Remember what I said, that this market structure exists when these conditions have been satisfied. But you find that in real life situation, these conditions do not exist. So we have unrealistic conditions for a perfect market structure. Unrealistic conditions. So if we have to say what are these unrealistic, we go back. Buyers and sellers can be few. Or sellers can be few. That is one thing that is making this market structure to be unrealistic, because we have seen from what I just started mentioning the market structures. I said, for instance, in a monopoly market structure, you have only one seller. Another one is that there are barriers to entry. Entry into a market is not free, such that anyone who wants to enter can just jump in or leave from the industry. Of course, we still go on looking on the factors which make a perfect market structure to be a theoretical concept, something that is unrealistic, something that is imaginary. So we go on highlighting the factors which make a perfect market structure to be a theoretical concept. Dear students, for the time being, we go for a short break. Once we come back, we'll proceed on analyzing the factors which make a perfect market structure to be unrealistic.